Hello and welcome back to the channel. We got some pretty major updates for Deadlock on this November 21st patch. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you're new, like the video if you like it, and let's get started. So one of the first and major updates is that this update includes a new version of the matchmaker. The matchmaking pools are no longer split between normal and ranked. There is only one primary matchmaking mode and there are no limited hours, meaning you can play the ranked mode essentially at any time of the day, as ranked and casual are now kind of meshed together. There are leaderboards now in the game and you can queue as any party size, however there are a few details. However, if the range of skill in your party is too wide, the amount of MMR you can gain will be reduced. But you can also type in a command if you want to prefer playing solo. There's now also a swap lanes feature. During the rooftop and zipline phase at the start of the game, you can now request to swap lanes with your teammate by clicking the button below their portrait, something I think that should have been implemented from day one. Now for our miscellaneous changes, we got quite a few. These soul sharing ratios post lane were reduced. The hero kill souls were also decreased. The Wonker Stomp now also deals 10% max HP as damage. Walker's Laser now also deals 2% max HP DPS. Walkers now provide nearby ally heroes 25% bullet resist on how many enemies are nearby. The middle lane and Walker's HP were increased because there's 2 players in that lane, not 1. And I think all these changes are good and healthy for this game. After that, the Patreon Laser now deals 3% max HP DPS, so the Patreon got buffed so it does more damage to you. Flex slot changed from all shrines to 1 shrine and 2 base guardians, which is a pretty big change. The mid-boss trooper health from first spawn reduced from 95 to 70%. Trooper Spirit Resist at 25 minutes reduced from 30 to 20%. The respawn time curves changed from happening at 17 and 30 minutes for 40 seconds and 70 seconds respawn to 20 and 40 minutes. Basically what that's saying is at 20 minutes you'll have a 40-second respawn, at 40 minutes you'll have a 70-second respawn. Then the Trooper Soul changed from 60-40% in the kill orb to 65-35. The Medic Trooper now has 3 charges instead of 2, and the fall off minimum range reduced from 22 meters to 20 of that heal, which is a pretty significant change, at least for the 3 charges instead of 2, giving you a little bit more lane sustain. Now honestly, in my opinion, probably a pretty big change is that the power-ups or the side buffs, whatever you want to call them, now require a heavy melee to claim them. Just like the golden urns and other items around the map, power-ups now start weaker and grow stronger from 10 minutes to 40 minutes. I think this is a very interesting and healthy change for the game. It means going and getting the buffs and fighting for the buffs are a lot more present. I think it's very healthy for the game, encouraging more fighting, but let me know what you think down below in the comments. Then there's a ton of changes to heal and anti-heal rebalance. Abram's Infernal Resilience reduced from 14 to 11%, and tier 3 7% to 5.5. Abram's Siphon Life Heal versus hero reduced from 100 to 75. Aaron's Life Heal versus non-heroes reduced from 50 to 40. Bebop Hyper Beam tier 3 reduced from 133% for heroes / creeps to 80-25. Dynamo Rejuvenating Order Regen reduced from 32 to 30. The Aura Spirit Power Scaling reduced from 0.5 to 0.45. And then the Rejuvenating Aura tier 3 reduced from 3.8 to 3.4. Great Talon Rain of Arrows tier 3 reduced from 50% lifesteal to 40%. Infernus Catalyst tier 2 reduced from 15 to 12% lifesteal. Tier 3 reduced from minus 40 health degen to 33%. Yes, that's what it says on the patch notes, degen. Concussive Combustion tier 3 reduced from 100% to 85%. And it wasn't just those heroes affected. Ivy's Watcher's Covenant Bullet Lifesteal reduced. Ivy's Stoneform max health reduced, as well as the tier 3 max health was also reduced. Calvin's Frost Grenade tier 2 reduced from plus 125 heal to plus 100. Frozen Shelter Regen reduced from 120 to 110. The tier 3 reduced from plus 70 to plus 60. Lash Flog Heal versus heroes reduced from 70 to 65. Versus creeps reduced from 25 to 20. McGinnis Medicinal Spectre tier 3 reduced from 5 to 4.5. Mo and Krill Scorn Heal versus heroes and creeps. For heroes reduced from 2x to 1.6 versus creeps reduced from 0.7 to 0.6. So a ton of hero changes, at least for the healing. But it just doesn't stop there. For Pocket Affliction, Tier 2 healing reduction from 60 to 50%. Warden Last Stand non-hero lifesteal reduced from 50 to 20. Last Stand hero lifesteal reduced from 100 to 80%. Wraith Full Auto Tier 3 lifesteal reduced from 35 to 30%. Viscous the cube regen reduced from 40% to 35. Hidden Viscous the cube Tier 2 regen from 35 to 30. Viscous the cube regen spirit power scaling reduced from 0.2 to 0.18. Shiv Bloodletting reduced from 22% to 20%. Shiv Bloodletting Tier 1 reduced from 8% to 6%. Bloodletting Rage bonus reduced from 15 to 14%. So all these changes, Shiv is affected pretty good by this. He's nerfed even more, which is always a good sign. Then pretty much every single item that gives you some type of lifesteal was also affected in this. You can see on screen what all of them are, but pretty significant ones are like Vampiric Burst, Leech, and Toxic Bullets, just to name a few. But with that out of the way, we now move on to our weapon item changes. So here are all the weapon changes. Rapid rounds fire rate increased from 10% to 11%. Monster rounds bonus health reduced from 50 to 30. Pretty big change. Berserker weapon damage per stack increased from 5 to 6%. Soul Shredder Bullets Spirit Amp reduced from 10 to 8%. Headhunter Headshot bonus damage reduced from 140 to 130. Heroic Aura cooldown reduced from 25 seconds to 20. Alchemic Fire DPS burn lingers on targets for 1 second. Hunter's Aura fire rate slow reduced from 10% to 9%. And we also have a new item. That item being Spell Slinger Headshot. And it requires Soul Shredder bullets. And landing a headshot on enemy heroes increases your total spirit power by 3% for 12 seconds. The cooldown is 1.5 seconds and it has a max stack of 12. It grants plus 12% weapon damage plus 8% spirit amp, and it gives 18% spirit lifesteal. It's a component passive and it gives you plus 150 health. As well as Glass Cannon now requires slowing builds and grants the slow passive. Silencer got reworked and it passively builds up on enemies, silencing for 2 seconds and then reducing spirit damage output by 40% for 4 seconds. So it's not just a click activate, but it now requires to rev up that silencing power. Lucky Shot got a buff. The damage multiplier increased from 90 to 110%, and Lucky Shot now grants plus 150 bullet shield, which is pretty good and pretty insane. Moving on, we now have our vitality items. Melee lifesteal now grants plus 3% bullet resist. Reactive barrier bullet shield health reduced from 400 to 350. Return fire now requires extra regen to be built into. Debuff reducer debuff resist reduced from 30 to 28%, and the weapon damage increased from 6% to 8% for that item. Divine barrier now has a plus 8% ability range. Divine barrier no longer grants plus 1 spirit. Healing Nova no longer has plus 6% ability range, and the heal bane duration increased from 6 seconds to 7, so a pretty big change. Debuff remover, active buff duration on purge increased from 3 to 4 seconds. Purging a debuff now also heals you for 10% max HP, so debuff reducer is a really good item to buy now, more so than what it used to be. Rescue Beam received quite a lot of changes. The heal reduced from 26% to 24%. It now grants plus 6% ability range. The cooldown increased from 26 seconds to 36 seconds, and the pulse speed was reduced by 15%. Following that, Metal Skin now reduces your move speed by 1.5 when you activate it. Superior Stamina now grants plus 75 health. It also increases wall jump count by 1 as well. Majestic Leap now grants plus 6% spirit resist, and Phantom Strike cast range now ignores the Z height, similar to Lash's Death Slam, so you can get some pretty sick air. Following that, we have a ton of changes to spirit items, so sit back. Ammo Scavenger, while at max stacks, you gain plus 2 spirit. Infuser cooldown reduced from 37 seconds to 32. Decay healing reduction reduced from 70 to 55%. Decay damage increased from 1 to 1.4, and Withering Whip cooldown reduced from 18 to 15 seconds. Improved Spirit health increased from 100 to 125. Silence Glyph no longer a tracking projectile using a unit target, and the cooldown reduced from 32 to 24 seconds. Ethereal Shift post shift now also grants plus 20 spirit power, which is a pretty significant change. Rapid recharge time between charges reduced from 65 to 60%. Knockdown cast range now ignores the Z height. Mystic Slow now grants plus 1 spirit, and the health health wicks increased from 140 to 160. Torment Pulse now grants plus 15% melee resist. And with that, we have the introduction of another new item. It's a new tier 3 spirit item called Spirit Snatch. It requires Spirit Strike, a component, and it causes your melee attacks to steal 12% spirit resist and 26 spirit power for 16 seconds. The cooldown is 6 seconds, but the buff you receive stacks if you hit different heroes. It grants plus 15% melee damage, plus 8% spirit resist, plus 125 health, and plus 1 spirit, which is pretty insane, especially for a character like Abrams. And following that, we also have another new item as well. It's another tier 3 spirit item, and this item is called Arcane Surge. It requires kinetic dash. After a successful dash jump, the next ability you use will also have plus 20% range, plus 20% duration, and plus 20 spirit power. It grants plus 100 health, plus 1 stamina, and plus 15% slow resist. So honestly, a pretty insane item for movement. Divine Kevlar no longer grants plus 20% spirit lifesteal, it now grants plus 7% ability duration. Echo Shard cast delay reduced from 0.3 to 0.25 seconds. Mystic Reverb damage increased from 40 to 45%, and Refresher cooldown increased from 230 to 260. Now before we get into the hero changes, I just want to quickly say, whether you want to believe it or not, these videos take a while to make. I'm not the best at editing, nor do I claim to be a very good editor. I do my best to get content out that I hope you think you would enjoy. So if you don't mind doing the favor of hitting that like button, it just greatly helps me out. But anyways, let's get back to the video. So getting started with Abrams and Bebop. Abrams base region increased from 1 to 1.5. Siphon life range now scales with spirit power. The siphon life damage scaling with spirit power increased from 0.4 to 0.5, and the seismic impact dragdown collision improved a bit. So overall, a buff to Abrams. Bebop exploding uppercut tier 2 bonus now applies to melee damage too, which is kinda insane. The hook can now be cancelled by allies with exit key spacebar, similar to existing viscous cube. That's a very good change. Dynamo received quite a few changes. The kinetic pulse now slides around geometry when it hits an obstruction. Quantum Singularity, pulling allies no longer cancels their channels. Rejuvenating Aura now allows you to reload during it. Quantum Entanglement now has a visual indicator for allies that will teleport. The ally range increased from 9 meters to 10. The cooldown increased from 15 to 16. Tier 3 for Quantum Entanglement. Cooldown reduced, improved from -4 to -5. And the Rejuvenating Aura now allows you to melee before Tier 3 upgrade, which is nice. Now before I see these as buffs to Dynamo, I more see them as quality of life changes for him, so it's a little bit easier to play him. Following that, we have quite a few changes made to Great Talon, and that mainly affecting his immobilizing trap. But Great Talon bullet damage increased from 24 to 25. The health growth per boon increased from 27 to 29. Now, immobilizing trap now tethers targets rather than rooting them, which is nice. Trap tether duration increased from 1.25 seconds to 1.5. The trap no longer applies 50% slow for 1 second. The slow now starts immediately for 30% and lasts until 2 seconds after the tether ends. The trap tier 2 changed from +2 second slow to +1 second tether, and the trap radius increased from 6 to 6.2. Trap tier 1 CD improved from -19 to -20. The guided owl camera now returns more quickly when the owl collides very far away. That last one is more like a quality of life change rather than anything else. Next up, we have changes made to Haze and Infernus. So for Haze, they fixed bullet dance symptoms for using your client. Haze using items during Spoke Bomb no longer breaks invisibility. Smoke Bomb cooldown reduced from 37 to 30 seconds. Smoke Bomb tier 1 changed from -14 seconds to +6 invis sprint speed. For tier 2, they changed from +6 invis sprint speed to +15% bullet lifesteal for 8 seconds. Haze Smoke Bomb tier 3 changed from +30% bullet lifesteal for 8 seconds to phase out for 0.5 seconds on cast and enables charges with 10% charge time. This causes you to be out of the world and fizzle incoming projectiles during this time. You're still able to move. You need to buy charges still. Okay, that's pretty interesting. That was a lot. Haze fixation damage versus objects. The Haze bullet dance bonus damage changed from +5 bullet damage to +6 sprint damage. And then Haze bullet dance tier 1 changed to +7 spirit damage. Then for Infernus, afterburn build-up decay time is now 15% slower. Concussive combustion radius increased from 12 to 13 meters. Then concussive combustion tier 2 radius reduced from 4 meters to 3. I know I'm yapping a lot, but that's what a patch notes video is. Then for IV, bullet damage increased from 5 to 5.2. Bullet damage growth reduced from 0.36 to 0.34. Fix being launched incorrectly when using stone form. Fix stone form from having a brief period of vulnerability after class. Airdrop flight controls improved. Airdrop duration reduced from 17 to 16 seconds. Airdrop cooldown increased from 85 to 90 seconds. Airdrop speed can now be increased with move speed or sprint items when out of combat. So that means if you build a ton of speed and you're out of combat, you could literally move around like an airplane, which I think is hilarious. Then Kelvin Seismic Impact. This slam and ground strike now smashes through Ice Path. Lady Geist SM Bomb self-damage spirit scaling reduced from 2 to 1.8. Lash ground strike drag down collision improved a bit. Those were the changes for Kelvin, Lady Ice, and Lash. Nothing really anything to note, but you know who did change a lot? McGinnis. Bullet velocity for her was increased from 533 to 590. They fixed the wall triggering on reactive barrier. Mini turrets health no longer scales with your hero's health. Mini turrets spirit resist reduced from 70 to 30. The base health for them were increased from 75 to 150. Mini turrets now gain plus 20 health per boon. Mini turrets now take at most 33% of their max HP per second from any damage source. Then they fixed mini turrets dying, causing you to lose sprint. Mini turrets cycle time reduced from 0.5 to 0.25. Mini turrets bullet velocity increased from 406 to 500. Basically what that's telling me is that the turret build is going to be even more powerful for her. Next up we have Mirage and Moan and Krill. Mirage received a couple changes. Tornado speed reduced by 10%. They fixed their tornado being usable when immobilized. Tornado and Fire Scarab's ability slots swapped. The Traveler cooldown increased from 130 to 145 seconds. Traveler tier 2 increased from minus 40 seconds to minus 55. And Traveler can now be casted by targeting the top bar portraits, which is also nice. Bow and Krill headshot resistance now only applies to the big head, which is interesting. Burrow can now go under Spectral Wall. Combo now pulls the target closer to you over time. Combo health gain increased from 30 to 70. Sandblast duration reduced from 3.5 to 3 seconds. Sandblast tier 3 slow reduced from 50 to 40%. Next are just a couple changes to Paradox and 7. But for Paradox, fixed kinetic carbine, not proccing headshots effects. And paradoxal swap time / min-max increase from 0.2 to 0.3 to help with camera, and then the time wall now deals 50 damage for going through it. 7 Storm Cloud now causes you to levitate up and down a little bit in a cycle rather than being fully stationary. 7 Storm Cloud expand time reduced from 2 seconds to 1.5, so pretty good quality of life changes to Paradox and 7. Next up is Shiv, and Shiv received a lot of changes. So for Shiv, serrated knives cooldown reduced from 19 to 16 seconds. Serrated knives can now capture souls. Slice and dice base damage increased from 105 to 110. Dice tier 2 reduced from plus 75 to plus 70. Cooldown reduced from 16 to 15 seconds. Tier 1 reduced from minus 4 to minus 3 seconds. So all of that looks like a kind of like a buff to Shiv in a way. Then for Killing Blow, threshold increased from 20% to 22. Killing Blow tier 2 reduced from plus 8% health threshold to plus 6%. Killing Blow full rage damage bonus increased from 15 to 17, so a buff to Shiv. However, the Killing Blow tier 2 reduced from plus 10% full rage bonus damage to plus 8. They fixed an issue when using serrated knives and immediately holding mouse 1 after shooting to not firing your gun. Then Killing Blow rage per spirit damage increase from 0.013 to 0.014, not a massive change. Then Killing Blow cast range increased from 14 meters to 15. Now comes Vindicta, and Vindicta also received quite a few changes. The Crow Familiar changed from 0.2 second cast delay to 0.2 second post cast time. The Crow Familiar now also reduces spirit resist by 6%. Tier 3 changed from plus 3% bleed and plus 40% anti-heal to plus 12% spirit and bullet resist. Vindicta stake radius increased from 8 to 9 meters. Stake now sucks enemies 3 meters towards the center. Stake tier 1 changed from plus 5 seconds to minus 40% fire rate, which is insane for the first upgrade. And then Stake Tier 3 changed from disarm to plus 0.75 seconds. Assassinate minimum charge up increased from 25% to 50. That's good. Assassinate bonus damage on low HP, base damage reduced from 135 to 120. And then they fix being stuck in the zoom in, which are all good changes. So overall, a change of putting Vindicta just in a better spot in general. Then last but not least, because I don't want my computer to blow up from rendering this entire thing, we have the last three characters to cover. Viscous Puddle Punch can now be parried, which is interesting. Warden Fire Rate Spirit Scaling reduced from 0.3 to 0.25. Alchemic Flask now respects line of sight, which is nice. Warden Last Stand cooldown increased from 138 seconds to 140. Warden Last Stand resist during channel increased from 50 to 60%. Wraith Full Auto Tier 2 no longer has Spirit Scaling. Full Auto Tier 3 now also adds Spirit Scaling, so those were swapped. Wraith Telekinesis now causes target to oscillate up and down a little bit. Okay, that's interesting. Then lastly, Yamato improved cases where Power Slash would hit enemies behind cover. Shadow Transformation no longer heals on cast. Shadow Transformation Tier 3 increased from plus 2 seconds to plus 3. And Shadow Transformation now heals for 15% of your max HP on hero kill. But those were all of the changes. Like always, I'll have the link to the patch notes or the forums patch so you can see the entirety of what I've missed. Or if you want to go back and see the full depths of where the patches are, make sure to check that out. Like I said, I'm still trying to understand how you guys would like me to do these patch notes videos. I'm always told multiple ways of how to do them or how not to do them, but for now I'm gonna keep it at this concept. I can always change it. It's no big deal. I hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you in the next one.